Boston, Lincolnshire. The 20th of May, 2016. A backyard. String lights, laughter, the smell of a grill. Housemates gathered for a birthday. Nothing about this night suggests it will matter to anyone outside this small circle of friends. But before the night is over, one guest will leave this party and walk to a flat on Elizabeth Road, the home of a woman he once called his wife. Her name is Marina Erte. She is 33 years old. By the next afternoon, neighbors will notice smoke. Firefighters will force their way inside, and in the bathroom, in the bath, they will find her, naked, badly beaten, and gone. This is the case of Marina Erte. Marina Erte works with her hands. Every day, she's on the line at FESA, a fruit packing company in Spalding. Steady work, the kind that doesn't leave much room for anything but routine and exhaustion. She's part of a tight community here, Boston's Eastern European circle, people who look out for one another in a country that isn't quite home. Her friends know her well. Anita Zeleznova, Ingrata Sabunina, Irina Sura. Names that mean little to the outside world, but names a jury will come to know intimately, because these are the women Marina confided in. She was married once, to Gaitis Griskevicius. That ended in the spring of 2015. After the separation, Marina starts again. A new relationship. A man who isn't Gaitis. She finds her own flat, on Elizabeth Road, Boston. And she makes a decision that says more about her state of mind than almost anything else in this story. She doesn't tell everyone where she lives now. Not out of secrecy for its own sake, out of fear. Her family will later describe her, simply, as a much-loved mother, daughter, sister, and friend. They will say her death left a big void in all of their lives. Right now, though, she is just a woman starting over, working her shifts, trusting her closest friends, believing that distance, a new address, a new life, might be enough to leave the past behind her. It won't be. To look at Gaitis Griskevicius, there was nothing to notice. 32 years old, no criminal record, not here in Boston, not back home in Lithuania. To the men he shared a house with, he was just another housemate, ordinary, forgettable even. But ordinary is not the same as harmless. Marina's friends saw a different man. They would later tell a jury that after she left him, Griskevicius was consumed by anger. Angry enough, one friend said, that he wanted her out of the way. Anita Zeleznova went further. She told the court that Griskevicius had spoken about paying someone to get rid of Marina. She was asked what she understood him to mean. Her answer was direct: murder. Then came the small things, the kind of things that are easy to dismiss individually and impossible to dismiss together. Marina's bicycle, stolen. Her cat, gone, without explanation. Her car, its locks jammed with superglue. None of it was proof of anything. But Marina didn't need proof. She had a feeling, and that feeling had a name, Gaitis. She became convinced he was watching her, following her. And when he somehow discovered the address of her new flat on Elizabeth Road, a place she had chosen specifically to keep from him, that conviction turned into fear. She told her friends plainly, she didn't want anyone to know where she lived, not because she was being careful, because she was afraid. Because she didn't trust anyone not to let it slip. What Marina was describing to the people closest to her had a name too, though none of them used it at the time. It was the slow architecture of control. A man who could not accept that she had left, quietly making sure she was never quite free of him. Nobody stepped in. There was on paper nothing to step in for. A missing cat, a jammed lock, a comment made in anger. It would take a courtroom, a year later, to string those details into the shape they'd always had. Every case like this has a moment where the story could have gone another way. For Marina Erte, that moment came in the spring of 2015, when she and Gaitis Griskevicius separated. On its own, a separation is just an ending. People part ways every day. Most move forward. Gaitis did not. Friends who knew him described a man who loved her very much, and who could not stand to see her build a life with someone else. That distinction matters. This wasn't heartbreak settling into acceptance. It was heartbreak that never found a place to land. When Marina began a new relationship, something in Gaitis shifted. Prosecutors would later tell the court plainly, the attack that followed was motivated by jealousy. Not by anger at a single argument, not by a single provocation, by the simple, unbearable fact that Marina had moved on, and he had not. This is not a story about a man pushed past his limits. It is a story about a man who mistook another person's happiness for a threat to his own. A year passed between that separation and the night that would end Marina's life. A year in which the small warning signs, the missing cat, the superglue, the sense of being watched, were, in hindsight, not random. They were the sound of a fuse, burning slowly, toward a night in May. Friday, the 20th of May, 2016. The last day of Marina Erte's life begins like any other. By evening, Gaitis Griskevicius is at a barbecue, celebrating his birthday with the men he lives with. There's nothing in this moment that separates it from 1,000 other backyard parties across Britain that night. No argument, no scene, just a man, a grill, and a few drinks with friends. But at some point that night, Griskevicius leaves the party, and he walks toward Elizabeth Road, toward the flat of the woman he has spent a year unable to let go of. The flat on Elizabeth Road sits quiet through the night. No one raises an alarm. No one yet knows there's a reason to. It's the neighbors who notice first. Something isn't right. The smell of smoke, perhaps. The stillness where there shouldn't be stillness. They do the only thing they can. They call for help. Firefighters arrive and force their way inside. The flat is smoke-damaged, the air thick with the aftermath of a fire that never fully caught. They move through the rooms, searching, and in the bathroom, they find her, Marina Erte, naked, badly beaten, lying in the bath. Whatever this looked like from the outside just hours earlier, an ordinary flat, an ordinary street, it is now a crime scene. Lincolnshire police move fast. Within days, they release Marina's name to the public. This is no longer a quiet, private tragedy. It's a murder investigation, and Boston knows it. A 32-year-old man is arrested on suspicion of murder. It's Griskevicius. But an arrest is not a conviction. He's questioned, and then released on bail while detectives continue building their case, piece by piece, before he is formally charged. For Marina's friends, Anita, Ingrata, Irina, and for the wider Eastern European community she was part of in Boston, the news lands like a blow. The woman they knew, the woman who confided her fears to them, who told them she didn't trust anyone enough to share her new address, is gone. The quiet fears Marina had voiced for months suddenly don't sound like anxiety anymore. They sound like a warning nobody acted on in time. The case now belongs to Lincolnshire Police's East Midlands Special Operations Unit for Major Crime, a team built for exactly this. At the helm, Detective Inspector Jim Hodgson, Senior Investigating Officer. From the very first interview, Hodgson's team faces a problem. Griskevicius denies everything. Not just involvement in Marina's death, denial, full stop. No confession, no moment of cracking under pressure. Just flat denial, and, as police would later put it, not a shred of remorse. Here is where the story splits this version, comes from Griskevicius himself. In police interviews later played for the jury, he admits he was there that night. He says he and Marina had sex. He says that when he left, she was fine. He never took the stand to defend that version in person. He gave his account once, to police, and then let it stand, untested, unexplained, unchallenged by cross-examination, for the rest of the trial. That leaves investigators with one path forward. Build the case without him. Piece by piece, fact by fact. Let the evidence speak for itself. They start with the blood. Dr. Neil Simpson's forensic analysis becomes the spine of the case, the trail leading from the living room to the bathroom, mapping out an attack that moved through 2 rooms, not 1. Then, the injuries. Marina had suffered a traumatic brain injury. Fractures to both eye sockets, her nose, her jaw. This was not a struggle. This was a sustained, deliberate beating. Fire investigators examine what's left of the carpet and confirm what the scene already suggested. The fire wasn't an accident. It had been set, deliberately, and had simply failed to spread the way whoever lit it intended. And then there are the voices of the people who knew Marina best, her friends. They don't just confirm that Griskevicius was jealous, they hand investigators a motive with a history, a pattern of stalking, harassment stretching back months, and that one line, spoken long before May 2016, about paying someone to get rid of her. On its own, any single piece of this could be explained away. A fire could be accidental. Injuries could, in theory, result from many things. Even jealousy, on its own, proves nothing. But together, these pieces stop looking like coincidence. They start looking like intent. like a picture of a man who hadn't simply lost control in a single chaotic moment, but who had been circling this outcome for a long time before he ever set foot in that flat. The case Hodgson's team builds isn't about catching Griskevicius in a lie. It's about letting Marina's own life, her fears, her friendships, her body, tell the jury what happened when the man responsible refused to. Lincoln Crown Court. Griskevicius stands and enters his plea, not guilty, but he will not stand again to explain himself. When it comes time for his defense, he chooses not to give evidence, no cross-examination, no chance for the prosecution to test his account face to face. His only version of events remains the one he gave police months earlier, recorded and replayed for the jury exactly as he left it. That version has not changed since the first interview. Consensual sex. A goodbye. A woman who was fine. For 2 weeks, the jury listens as that story is measured against everything else in the case. And every measurement comes up short. Blood in the living room and blood in the bathroom tell the jury a woman was attacked in one room and moved to another. A body doesn't relocate itself. Fractures to both eye sockets, to the nose, to the jaw, describe a beating no one walks away from unmarked, let alone fine. A traumatic brain injury sits alongside a claim of an uneventful, amicable visit, and simply does not fit beside it. Representing Griskevicius, Sean Smith QC does what any defense would do with what he has. He points to a clean record, no prior convictions, not in Britain, not in Lithuania. It's the only card available. It says nothing about what happened in that flat on the night of the 20th of May. It cannot answer the blood. It cannot answer the injuries. It cannot answer the fire. There is no confession in this case. There never will be. But by the close of the 2-week trial, the jury doesn't need one. The flat itself has testified. The blood has testified. Marina's friends have testified. And against all of it, one man's unchallenged word, spoken once, to police, and never defended in person, is left standing alone. It does not stand for long. April 2017. Nearly a year after Marina Erte's body was found in that bath on Elizabeth Road, the jury returns. Guilty. Gaitis Griskevicius is found guilty of murder. Judge Michael Heath addresses him directly, and his words leave no room for ambiguity. You have been found guilty by the jury on compelling evidence, he tells him. I have detected not a shred of remorse in your body. The judge continues, laying out exactly what Griskevicius had done. You inflicted upon your wife a brutal assault. She suffered a traumatic brain injury. And then, the line that captures everything the forensic evidence had already shown, a beating that wasn't enough on its own. You weren't satisfied with that, the judge says, and you finished her off. The sentence, life imprisonment, with a minimum term of 23 years, before he can even be considered for parole. Outside the courtroom, Detective Inspector Jim Hodgson reflects on an investigation defined by what it didn't have: no confession, no cooperation, no admission of guilt at any point. Gaitis always denied the offense and has shown no remorse for his actions, he says. He describes what was done to Marina plainly: a brutal and violent attack within her own home, and a fire, set afterward, in a deliberate attempt to destroy evidence and derail the investigation that would ultimately convict him. And then, the words that matter most, not from police, not from a judge, but from the people who loved her. Marina's family releases a statement. They call her a much-loved mother, daughter, sister, and friend. They say her death left a big void in all of their lives. A verdict can deliver justice. It cannot deliver Marina back. 23 years is a number on a sentencing document. The void her family describes has no number attached to it at all. At its core, this was never a story about a single violent night. That night was only the end of it. This was a story about love that curdles into something else, the moment a person can't let go, and what was once love becomes ownership instead. The warning signs were never hidden: a missing cat, a jammed lock, a comment about paying someone to make a problem disappear. A woman who told her closest friends, plainly, that she was afraid, and that she didn't know who she could trust with something as simple as her own address. Marina did what she could. She moved. She kept her new home private. She confided in the people around her, again and again, hoping that saying it out loud might be its own kind of protection. It wasn't enough. It rarely is, when the threat comes from someone who already knows exactly where to look. Gaitis Griskevicius is now serving a minimum of 23 years. But this isn't his story to end on. This is Marina Erte's. A woman who worked hard on a factory line in Spalding, who left a difficult marriage and tried, deliberately, to build something better for herself, who had friends who listened to her fears and later stood in a courtroom and made sure those fears were heard by people who could finally do something with them. Cases like Marina's tend to follow a pattern that, in hindsight, is painfully easy to see. The stalking, the jealousy, the small acts of control that escalate long before anyone treats them as a warning. The pattern was visible here too. It was documented. It was spoken about, out loud, to people who cared. It just wasn't acted on in time.